So Pacylex is developing a new first-in-class therapeutic as a cancer drug, and this is called Pacylex-001. It's an NMT inhibitor or N-methyltransferase inhibitor, and it's showing excellent pharmaceutical characteristics. We now have it in the clinic. It's been selectively lethal to hematologic cancers in preclinical studies. It's showing 100% oral bioavailability. Once-a-day dosing has been clinically confirmed. We get extremely good drug exposure in patients. There's no dose-limiting toxicity seen to date through the first 3 cohorts of our phase 1 dose escalation study. We're on target for having three phase 2s in 2023, and we're going to be going out this year for a Series B in order to support those studies. We expect to have a recommended phase 2 dose, that's our RP2D, in the fall of this year, and that will trigger all 3 of those phase 2 programs. One of them in AML at MD Anderson, and 2 of them based on the currently ongoing phase 1 study. Some of the preclinical data that led us to put this in the clinic are summarized here. This is a graphic of 300 different cell lines that have been tested against Pacylex-001. And what you see is that in hematologic cancers, shown in the dark gray, hematologic cancers are largely killed by Pacylex-001. Other cancers are inhibited strongly by Pacylex-001, but only a smaller subset are killed. So we've naturally focused on those where Pacylex-001 is able to completely eradicate the cancer. And we're able to show that in animal models. In the first one here, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma model, based on human-derived cancer cells in that xenograft that are resistant to conventional chemotherapy. And you can see that you get a dose response, and at the high level of drug, you get complete tumor regression. We see the same kind of thing with AML. Again, these are patient-derived AML cancer cells used for this model. And we're looking in the bone marrow specifically because that's the most difficult compartment in the body to eradicate cancer in. And you can see that, again, we get a nice dose response, and at the high levels, we completely eradicate the cancer stem cells from the bone marrow. So this is where we are right now. We're just finishing up cohort 3 of our dose escalation study. We should have, before the end of the month, our safety review for cohort 3 and advance into cohort 4 and begin dosing patients in cohort 4. We expect that cohort 4 or 5 will lead us to our recommended phase 2 dose, and that will allow us to initiate our expansion studies in diffuse large B-cell lymphoma and solid tumor cancer patients, as well as initiate an AML phase 2 study at MD Anderson Cancer Center. This phase 2 study is being supported by the Department of Defense in the US. Our current ongoing study is being conducted at 4 clinical sites in Canada. So in 2023, we expect to have a portfolio that looks like this. We'll have 3 ongoing clinical studies in phase 2. Diffuse large B-cell lymphoma is our lead indication, which we expect to register first. Acute myeloid leukemia will not be far behind. Solid tumors will depend on which populations respond in our expansion study in solid tumors. And that could be, a little bit longer than the hematologic malignancies in order to get to market. We could have 2 NDAs as early as 2025. We have another program outside of cancer that we haven't yet disclosed that should be filing an IND next year as well. Now, Pacylex-001 has a genuine blockbuster sales potential. So if the product performs in any way close to in the clinic what it's performed preclinically, we would look at a multi-billion-dollar revenue stream for the program. And the product works through the same axis in the body as the BTK inhibitors. So BTK inhibitors are a very attractive group of compounds that have been incredibly successful economically as well as clinically. We are at least 10 times as potent as ibrutinib, which is the flagship BTK inhibitor. And we're also cytotoxic, whereas ibrutinib really isn't that cytotoxic against cancer cells. Big Pharma has been paying a lot for BTK inhibitor programs. You can see these 3 examples from the recent several years of multi-billion-dollar deals. We expect that with phase 2 data, we're going to fall into the same category. We have a very experienced team. I've been doing drug development of pharmaceuticals for 30 years, 15 in public pharma, 15 at private companies, where this is my 5th CEO gig at startups. We have a nice Alberta team, many of whom you already know. Luc Barthiaume, John Mackey, and Ryan Haidt are the 3 co-founders, all still with the company. Erwan Beauchamp has been instrumental in this as well. Mark Hewson, you probably recognize, he's at the university as well. Cindy Jacobs and Nolan Masterson are our independent board members. Ajit Gill is our investor board member. We also have a scientific advisory board focused on getting us launched in AML. So just to summarize, we have a first-in-class NMT inhibitor that's first drug dosed in patients in this class. a new mechanism. The inhibition of myristoylation is a genuine new cancer target. We've got an excellent profile, as I summarized, once a day oral drug that's very potent at killing cancer cells. We're making very rapid clinical progress and expect to reach our recommended phase 2 dose this year. That will trigger 3 phase 2 programs next year. The first one to registration, which is diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, followed by AML, and then 1 or more solid tumor cancers programs. We have blockbuster market potential. I gave you the example of ibrutinib. That had 9.8 billion in sales last year. So that's the kind of territory we could be ending up in. We only have one other myristoylation company that's in, and it's not in the clinic yet. So they're probably a year and a half behind us at least. Experienced team that I just reviewed with you, exit potential on phase 2 data. And this Series B is going to fund the phase 2 programs in 23 that really put the company on the map. So any questions, I'm happy to take now. Thank you.
I've got a question if no one else does.
You got to as the host.
But anyone else is welcome to ask questions. I'm just wondering, it's an amazing story, and you guys have worked on this for well over a decade, and it's great to see it come to fruition. I'm wondering, what does it take to keep a team like you here in Alberta, assuming that this continues to go forward? You're going to get lots of offers to grow your program all in different parts of the world. What would you like to see us do in Alberta to make this a great place for companies like Pacylex to grow and sustain their trajectory?
So interestingly enough, I'm based in the Bay Area. So I came in December of 2017 because of the difficulty in finding experienced leadership in Canada for companies in this kind of situation. So we have not yet made a commitment to go to the US. But right now, the challenge is, as this company expands into a genuine, deep clinical development program company in the next year, finding the talent and expertise within, Alberta is going to become more challenging. So we need expertise in clinical development. We need expertise in manufacturing and supply chain for pharmaceuticals. We need expertise in quality assurance, quality control, regulatory affairs, and it all needs to be global. So, we're going to be doing studies in Europe, Canada, and the US. So all these have to be global. And so that is often a very tall order in Alberta. So, I don't know how to answer that question, because I don't know if you guys can pull together that much experienced resource for us in the next, 6 months.
Okay, Craig.
So I might have missed it, or I might not have, because you're moving into your next phase of investment. What are you looking for, and how are people able to participate when it comes to the financing raise?
So I didn't put a figure down because we're still fleshing that out. In fact, earlier today, I just had a meeting with Pacylex, one of the 2 CROs we're considering for our clinical programs. So until I have a final budget, I don't want to put a number out there, but it's going to be in the $75 to $100 million range. That's what we're going to need to support, 3 phase 2 programs, plus some R&D work and preparations for some non-clinical or for non-cancer indications. But, I haven't put a final budget out there because we don't have it finalized with our CROs yet. And that's going to be the major expenses, of course, is clinical.